Delighted to be joined today by Kay Burley. Kay, how are you?
I am fantastic, thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
Not at all, not at all. It's a pleasure, and I found you easier this time than I did last time.
I'm sorry for
No,
that.
your directions are perfect on the website, but it's not my part of town, so I had to sort of orientate myself.
We're all very territorial in London.
Yeah, I'm Northwest London.
Absolutely right. Let me start. Obviously, like a doyen of live presenting. What's the difference between doing live to camera as opposed to live to an audience?
I don't think, it depends who you ask, of course, but
Yeah.
for me, from my experience, I don't think there's that much difference.
Okay.
I do quite a lot of both, as you know.
Yes,
I did quite a lot of live telly over the years, about 40 years, including TVAM. And I love live telly. And people say, do you get nervous? No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I get excited. I covered the UK election last July. I did the programme overnight, which is like 8 to 10 hours, depends how the results are going. And that was really exciting. I sat next to Andy Burnham and I could feel his energy. So that was great. But also, if you're doing a panel interview in front of a live audience, it's very much the same. My father used to... my mum and dad met when they were worked in a cardboard box factory in Wigan.
Okay.
And when I became a journalist, my dad felt that he could make more of himself. So he went back to study. He went to Ruskin College in Oxford. And then he became a lecturer in trade union studies and industrial relations. He was head of Wigan College. And my mum, who was always a really good cook, then ran the refectory in the college. So they had the same holidays, etc. But the reason I mention that is because my dad was always very relaxed when he was talking to people or whatever. And I think I probably picked that up from him. And also, he also taught me and my sister Jacqueline to have a healthy disregard for the impossible. So when I came into this business with 5 O-levels and no A-levels, and people were saying, no, you can't do that. And I had 80 rejection letters from local newspapers. I just kept going and I knew that somebody would open the door eventually. Somebody would just keep banging on it. And that's what I say to a lot of the kids who I send the elevator back down for them. And they say, can we have a cup of tea to chat? And I say, absolutely not. But if you make it a glass of wine, you're on.
Do you think the resilience of people kind of getting into whether it's media or any other profession these days is what it used to be, and you can keep on going, or do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think because when I started, nobody gave me anything.
Yeah,
and I think now it's actually probably there are more opportunities now than there were when I first started. When I first started in telly, we used to have set mag and comag, which was the separation of film. Right. So if you filmed something in the morning for Granada Reports in the evening, you had to have it done by midday, so it could then go to the lab in order for it to be on the telly at 5 o'clock. Now I could go live on my phone here right now if something happened. In fact, when Joe Biden won the election in 2022,
20 was closing. Yes.
So I can't remember the date, but anyway, the point is I was at the Washington Monument and I went live on my phone.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how for you, kind of as technology has changed, is it just you've thrown yourself into it, or has it been like, has anything stumped you?
2020 was the date. Sorry about that. Yeah, and 2021 was when you was elected. So November 2020, and then 2021, wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
That was Trump. Honestly, my brain works like this, and I've got to get it right now. 2024 was Biden. And what was the question again?
Have any technology stumped you when you kind of what was most tricky to navigate through, I suppose?
So not really, because I'm surrounded by very clever people who do the technical side of stuff. But I also like to know what's going on. But no, not really. I'm learning PowerPoint presentations at the moment, but I don't want my audience to be death by PowerPoint. Yeah. So I have an awful lot of footage that I put in there, and editing clips can be quite tricky, especially if you're going from iPad to laptop. Yeah. Because there's a frame or two that sometimes is there on one and not on the other. That's all I know.
I liked it. It sounded professional to me. Let me ask, you mentioned that you never really got nervous or anything like that. from your perspective, when you came off telly, off you came off that panel discussion kind of, you know, how did you feel? How would you look at yourself to check whether or not you did a good job at that moment in time, and kind of what you
fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Okay.
That's what I've got on my fridge at home, and that's what I live by. So I do 100% of the work.
Yeah.
You're only ever going to need 10% of it, but you don't know which 10% you're going to need.
Yeah.
So you have to do all the work, and that's what I do. And in that way, I hope. I'm sure there are times when I've messed up, like not knowing when Joe Biden was elected. But if you
did not expect that question.
if you do the preparation, you'll be fine.
And again, is that something that kind of just came naturally to you, or something you were as you?
I knew I needed to. I knew that I didn't go to a posh school or university.
Yeah.
I knew that I had quite a northern accent when I first started, and so I knew that I would have to work harder than other people in order to be successful.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and that's what I still do.
And do you think that's the same? Nothing's changed in terms of kind of the perceptions for people of.
No, I think things have changed. I think it's quite acceptable to have a northern accent now, but I don't think it was when I started so many moons ago. I was once working for Red Rose Radio, and they used to have something called What the Papers Say.
Right.
So I used to drive from Wigan up the M6 to Preston to Red Rose, and then I used to ring the local papers, see what their front pages were, and then I would read it for 90 seconds on the drive time show. I was in the back of the studio waiting for my turn, and the two presenters were having a chat. They didn't know I was in the back of the studio, and one of them said to the other, "Who's doing What the Papers Say today?" And the other one said, "Well, I think it's that Kay Burley," making fun of my accent. I was mortified at the time, totally mortified, and we didn't have any money for elocution lessons. So I had a great big ghetto blaster and CFAX on the telly, and I used to just record it into the ghetto blaster and then play it back, and then I went too far the other way, and I used to talk terribly.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, which was really, really rather silly. And now I just talk like me.
Talk like you.
Mm.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. And tell kind of, without giving anything away, now kind of obviously kind of no longer with Sky.
Mm.
What does the future hold?
Oh, well, my son is desperate for me to have a rest, but that's not in my DNA.
Yes.
You know, I'm like a Duracell bunny. I just keep going and going. So I've been approached by lots of outlets, as you probably, you know, I'm flattered. And I'm just taking a moment to decide what the next step will be. You know, I'm 64. I've got one big job left in me, I think. I'm not ready to retire just yet. So I want to make sure that I choose the right one. So that's where I am. But I'm in advanced negotiations with a couple of people. I don't want a regular job. I was going to say a 9-to-5 job, but no, because my job was 3:17 in the morning, which is when I got up. 3:15 too early, 3:19 just too late. That was the sweet spot. So yeah, I don't want a regular role anymore, and so I'm in conversation. And I don't think that linear television is the way forward anymore. And we can see what Piers Morgan is doing, setting up his own YouTube channel, and podcasts are here, there, and everywhere. And you can't really do a podcast without also having a camera. Then you can put it onto YouTube. Yeah. So you know, I think there are a million options out there.
And do you think that terrestrial television has to adapt, or does that
well, terrestrial has had to adapt quite quickly over the last 10. I don't know. I mean, Sky, before Sky came along in 1989, there were only 3 channels.
Yes.
And then Sky came along, and we bulldozed down those doors. So terrestrial has changed since then, but equally, you know, the BBC and ITV still hold their own quite clearly. But I wonder, I read something this morning, I think, that said the biggest audience this week was on Netflix.
Yes, with
adolescents.
It's like everywhere.
Yeah. So I think times they are changing, but I've been at the forefront of that throughout my career, really.
And I suppose my last question is just about that. It's like I'm privileged that I get to meet some incredible people. There's a lot of talk about kind of media and where it's going to go. Do you hold the media landscape with positivity, or do you consider that?
I'm always positive about everything.
I love that. How do you keep that positivity always about everything?
Well, what's the alternative?
It's a fair point. Kay, thank you so much for your time. It's been lovely chatting.
And you too.